I'm going to demonstrate the process of removing a standard fixed buffer tray off of VF5100Z and installing a new removable buffer tray. So step one is to unplug the machine if it's plugged in and remove the blade holder just for safety. So we'll do that now. And set the blade holder aside somewhere safe and out of the way. Now we'll move the control box to the rearmost position just to give us more room to work. And then we will remove the existing fixed tube base using the IP15 driver that was included with your machine. So we'll flip the machine up and remove the two screws in the bottom. And we're going to retain these screws to use them to install the new machine, or the new buffer tray, removable style. Okay, so now that those are removed, this simply lifts off its alignment pins, and you can set this aside. We will need it later. So this is what the removable buffer tray base looks like, and it has similar threaded holes and unthreaded holes that align with the alignment pins. So step one from the top is to find those unthreaded holes and drop it into place. And now similarly we can turn the machine to access the bottom and get those two mounting screws started. And tightened. Okay. And now this removable buffer tray base has two positions. This is loading position, and this is the slicing position. We want to make sure that it's set to the loading position, which is all the way to the right. And now we're going to take the buffer tray adapter that shipped with plate A. So this plate is used to finally control the blade gap. So it ships with blade A, which has the biggest possible blade gap, so there's very little chance of your blade colliding with the tube as it shipped. And this process is going to explain how to measure the blade gap and then install the appropriate plate to get your blade gap into spec, which is as close as possible without any risk of crashing. So this part, the white plate goes to the right, and then you're going to insert your removable part here, push it till it stops, and then we're going to lock it in place here. So now we're going to insert our tube into the tube base, and you need to make sure your tube matches the kit you ordered. So this is a 20mm kit. The plates say 20 on them, and we need to use a 20mm tube. Especially on a new kit, I'd recommend a little bit of petroleum jelly on the tube just to make sliding it into those seals easier. You don't need to use this every time, but especially on a brand new kit, it's helpful. So we're going to insert our tube as far as possible until it hits a hard stop. And now we're going to install our blade holder back on the machine, making sure it has a blade on it. So while we're checking the blade gap, we need a blade that's properly mounted and representative of the blade you're going to be using with the machine. And then one other tip is, as you slide it on, you want to push the blade with one finger towards the tube while securing the set screw, because we want to make sure that the blade gap is as small as it will ever be. So there's a little bit of uncertainty in the blade gap, and if you push it that way, that uncertainty is always taken up, and the blade gap will be consistent if you always secure it that way. So the blade is now in place, and it's now time to turn on the machine. So I'll plug the machine back in, turn it on. We're going to set our oscillation to 0 and our speed to 10. We're going to press start, and we're going to watch and press stop when the blade is approximately halfway across the tube. So I'll press start, press stop. The blade is approximately splitting the tube down the middle. So now we're going to use the included shims that we ship with your kit to check the current blade gap so that we can adjust as necessary. So if you follow the instructions, we're going to start with the yellow shim and see if it passes between the blade and the tube or if it sticks. So we'll place the yellow shim between and let go, and you'll see that it falls right through. There's not any friction there. Now we'll move up to the next shim, which is orange, and we'll check the same thing, and it also falls right through. The next shim we check is clear, and as you can see, there is friction and it sticks. So there's a table that we'll include with your kit. You'll consult the table, and if the finished shim that sticks is clear, we consult the table and we need to change the blade gap control plate for plate C. So I'll show you how to do that now. So now we're going to remove the blade holder again and just put it somewhere safe so we don't accidentally cut ourselves while we're working on this machine. I'll do that. Now we will remove the buffer tray adapter by switching this lever to the loading position, and that allows us to unload it. And as you can see, it has a white plate here that says A on it, and based on the shim measurements we took, we know that we want to switch this out for a C plate. So I'll show you how to do that now. We included a 7/64 Allen driver with the kit, so we'll simply remove these two screws and remove the plate. This shipping plate we're not going to need anymore, we can set it aside. And we'll note that there's a gasket on both sides of this black top portion. So we want to make sure that those gaskets go back into place. So there's a gasket here, and if we spin it around, there's a gasket here. So this is looking good. And then from your kit, you'll find the plate that has a letter C. We're going to use that. And then we actually need our buffer tray. So we can use either a stainless steel or a single wall standard buffer tray. We'll remove the screws from the original buffer tray, set them aside. We won't be using those screws or the original gasket, so we can keep the gasket, the original buffer tray, and the screws together in case we ever wanted to reverse this modification. So now that we have our buffer tray, we have our plate, we have our adapter, we're now going to place the adapter over on the buffer tray, making sure the gaskets stay in place. We're going to add our plate C. We're going to take our screws and pass them through the plate, through the adapter, and into the buffer tray and get them started. And then we'll take our driver and, okay. So now we can confirm the blade gap meets our specifications. We simply reinsert the tray here. So we have our buffer tray installed. We'll take our tube, insert it, and then to confirm the blade gap is in specifications, we will reinstall our blade holder while pushing it towards the tube, and then we will take our shims, and the perfect gap is a visible gap, but we want a yellow shim to stick. And as you can see, a yellow shim sticks, so we are in spec, and you can continue to use your machine. So the only thing to note is that while your blade, one thing to note is that while your buffer tray is now removable, the blade holder is within the buffer tray, so you need to make sure that you remove your blade holder before removing your buffer tray. So we will do that now. As you can see, to remove the buffer tray, you just simply move this to the loading position, slide it out, put a new one in. Your blade gap is controlled and you should be good to go.